Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. Arsenal lose to Fulham 2-1 and they certainly are a club in crisis. How big is this crisis? Why is it happening? I'm going to tell you right now. Because Arsenal were top at Christmas and they're fourth on New Year's Eve. It's not good enough for a team that wants to succeed. But look, Arteta! I mean, I think there are Arsenal fans out there who absolutely love failure. Because I don't get it. Oh, if we didn't have Arteta, we would have won the league. What? Since you haven't won the league for 20 years. You've never won the Champions League. What are you talking about? You are in a much better position under Arteta than you have been for 10 years. This is a really good place for Arsenal to be in, but there are problems. And in some ways, I think Erik ten Hag and Arteta went on holiday together because they both changed their goalkeeper when they didn't necessarily need to do it. They both bought a flop from Chelsea when they definitely didn't need to do it. And they both revamped their midfield when they didn't need to do it. And they're both struggling because of that. Arsenal don't score as many goals as they used to last year. And neither do Manchester United. But we're here to talk about Arsenal. I saw the team today and I was like, I don't like this. I don't like it. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but I was like, I don't like Odegaard and Havertz. It never seems to work. The whole point of having two attacking midfielders. When you think about Arsenal last season with Xhaka, Partey and Odegaard was one of the players of the year. Loads of chances created, loads of goals. This year, one holding midfielder, Havertz and Odegaard. Odegaard's not as good, Havertz is Havertz, and they're not scoring as many goals. Man United done the same thing. They've gone with these two advanced midfielders. They're not creating chances and scoring goals, but they're conceding loads. It's weird. It's weird how both Ten Hag and Arteta have done this. And the Havertz signing I thought was odd, but I thought he'd use him where Nketiah's playing as a false nine or something like that. I didn't think he was going to revamp his midfield. And then he picks Nketiah, who for me wouldn't start for Everton. I think he's a bench player, pure and simple. He's not a guy you can ask to play up front in a title charge. And we learnt that last year. So there's limitations to Arsenal. Some of it's not Arteta's fault because I still think they need two fullbacks. I think they need another midfielder next to Rice, and I think they need a striker, and that's a budget restriction. But they look tired, they look out of ideas, and they're not scoring enough goals, and that's going to be problematic. They couldn't score against West Ham. They could only score one goal today. It's not like they were pummeling West Ham and missing opportunities, and they certainly wasn't the case today. In fact, Fulham had more shots and more shots on target than Arsenal. So the result is justified. It's a justified win for Fulham as much as it was a justified result for West Ham. And Arsenal find themselves in this position where, I mean, it would be preposterous to say Arteta needs to go because you're sacking him on a level that the club's not been at for 10 years. Like where Arsenal are at the moment is overachieving. You know, being in a title race full stop is something Arsenal haven't done for years. So you can't sack the manager for that. He's overachieving. But what's happening is Arsenal fans are frustrated because they're like, we can't afford to be losing these sort of games, and they can't. But there's a fatigue to that team. You know, people like Odegaard and Saka look tired. There's a lack of cutting edge up front. Jesus has been a waste of time this year, and Nketiah is not good enough. And then this Havertz signing has made them play in a different way. I actually think Ray has worked. I think that their defence is good, especially their centre-backs, and I think Declan Rice has worked. But in front of it, it's just not working. Odegaard's job has been minimalised. Everything should be going through him, and it's not. Havertz is just a bit of a passenger. If he doesn't score, he doesn't have a good game. It's as simple as that. And they don't have a cutting edge, and that's too many problems to have in a competitive league where teams like Fulham are up for it. They're up for it. They've got a system. It works, and it's interesting, isn't it? I think there's a few teams like Chelsea, Man United and Arsenal at the moment who, you know, on reputation and ability should be beating teams like Fulham and West Ham. But it goes a long way when you are a team that works together and knows everybody's job and has a system that's fluid. And, you know, Fulham had that today. West Ham had it on in midweek. And Arsenal just don't have that at the moment. And they've come unstuck twice. Look, it's going to be really difficult for Arsenal because I think these blows are big. And, you know, you're losing ground on teams like Man City, who've got a game in hand. Yeah, you know, Spurs are 1 point behind Arsenal. So I think that, you're losing ground in games that you can't afford to do it. And I think that's massively problematic. Do I think Arsenal are going to get back into it? I mean, honestly, They've struggled to score goals all season. Last year, they didn't. This year, they don't. They can't score goals. I mean, I said it on the last video I did about Arsenal. Wolves at home, 2-1. Forest at home, I think it was 2-1. They'd be putting those teams to bed and they're having to defend it out. They're too reliant on their defence at the moment. And, you know, you look at the goal. The first goal is a good goal from Fulham. The second one, it's bouncing around. You know, they react quicker. You've got to then go and score 3 goals. And they couldn't even equalise. West Ham scored after, 15 minutes? They couldn't even get one back. Arsenal aren't scoring enough goals and they need a striker. And I just don't know whether they've got the money to do it in January. But for me, that's absolutely essential if they want to get back in this title race. Also, let's be honest, I think most people would say Arsenal will comfortably get Champions League football and be in the top 4. With Spurs a point behind them and Villa and Man City and Liverpool ahead of them, Arsenal need to, just take a breath and gather themselves a bit. I mean, look, Arsenal probably aren't looking at the FA Cup game as a massive game against Liverpool next week. But I think suddenly it becomes a big game. And then you look at their next games after that. They've got Crystal Palace at home, Forest away, and then they play Liverpool at home. And they really need to win all 3 of those games to get themselves back in amongst it again. And I think they can do. Look, I don't think Arsenal have become a bad team overnight. I certainly don't think that's the case. But they have a fatigue about them. They've not really had the major injuries. They've had a couple, but they've not really had the major injuries everyone else has had. And I think their fans have got every right to be disappointed. But the whole Arteta out thing is ridiculous. It is ridiculous because Arteta has taken Arsenal to levels that they haven't been for very many years. And he has done a good job. Has he taken them as far as they can go? Well, I don't think there's any justifiable divine right that Arsenal win the league. I don't think there's any justifiable divine right that Arsenal play in the Champions League every year. I think we've learnt about football that that's not the case. Liverpool didn't win the Premier League for 30 years. Man United have been away from it for 10 years. No one's got a divine right, and Arsenal's ceiling may well be second place. Man City are a pretty good team. They're hard to dislodge. Liverpool, when they're at it, are hard to dislodge. Arsenal aren't having a bad season, but they're going through a bad period. And I think that, this is probably... I mean, I don't understand why Man United bought Mount, and I don't understand why Arsenal bought Havertz. And I think I know why Arteta's done it. I think he wanted to have more attacking options and press higher up the pitch, but it's not working. And it's not working for Ten Hag either. So maybe that doesn't work. Not everybody's got a Rodri and a defence that can push high up and do it. And I think everyone's trying to replicate Man City, but it was working better when you were doing it the other way last season. As for Fulham, fantastic. I never tire of giving credit to teams like Fulham and Wolves and Brentford and Brighton and teams like that and West Ham who just work incredibly hard, and they're not going to get top 4, but they make this league what it is. If you have an off day or you're not, or you have a weakness, these teams will exploit it, and that's exactly what happened. Fulham thoroughly deserved the win today. Anyway, get your comments in below. Don't forget to smash a like on the video, and Happy New Year to everyone. We're back with Liverpool against Newcastle as a watch-along tomorrow night. But what are your thoughts on Arsenal? Lot to get into there. Have I hit the nail on the head, or have you got other thoughts? Take care, smash a like, subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.